Good afternoon, and let me welcome you all in our 2021 SDG Summit. Following our commitment from last year in this summit, in CSRLS, we have continued our work together with CSR Europe and other national partner organizations. And in this summit, we have engaged with PITC Ireland and CSR Croatia to focus together with excellent members of our panel today on how we can accelerate innovation through diversity, equity, and inclusion. In just a brief update, I would like to remind you all that the COVID-19 pandemic has triggered an increase in gender-based violence and new victims, allow me to say under brackets, of unconscious bias, like older people, like people who refuse to be vaccinated, or people who may have family members that are more vulnerable to the pandemic. We have also seen many studies pointing out that the burnout impact of the pandemic in our employees is the new nightmare for companies, while it's female employees that suffer most from this symptom or this type of disease, allow me to say. People of all ages right now are trying to adapt, facing also common barriers. And they are including inadequate access to technology, the lack of private space, or even more basics like the food or the healthcare supply. The crisis gives now a chance. It is the chance we have to evaluate the structure of work and how organizations are in a complete transformation. Because the transition we are discussing is not going to happen without organizational transformation. And for sure, we cannot expect to have a just transition without putting diversity and inclusion in the core of our strategy. So allow me to offer the floor first to the representative of European Commission, Director for Equality and Union Citizenship, Ms. Irena Muzova, who is going to brief us up on the European Union legal requirements currently under development in support of the new European Union strategy for 2030. We have specific and common targets to achieve by 2030. European Union has an ambitious plan that is focused on the same motto like United Nations, no one to left behind. By 2030, we have to achieve sustainable and inclusive growth, embedding in our business models diversity, equity, and inclusion. Allow me to say a big thank you to Mrs. Muzova that is today with us, because I know very well that she has a very heavy agenda today. She will be willing to speak with us on her own insights regarding the EU regulation and how things are changing regarding diversity, but she's not going to stay with us until the end of this panel due to her other responsibilities. So, Ms. Muzova, the floor is yours, and thank you again for being here and with us for this round panel discussion. Thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Alexia, we have just been informed that Ms. Muzova has had some technical issues and is disconnected from the call. So she will be with us very shortly, but maybe it is wise to start with the panel discussion and come back to it when she reconnects, if you agree.
Sure. For sure, thank you. Then the floor is yours, Ariadne. As we have agreed, you will help with the coordination of the panel discussion. So please allow me to introduce you to our meeting. You have been coordinating this session, so please take over in order to start the panel discussion until Ms. Muzova will be able to reconnect with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for the introduction, and hello everyone from me as well. Now, as Ms. Alexiou has already mentioned, we will have a diverse panel of speakers with us here today, representing different industries and sectors. So before we lose too much time, I would like to introduce our first panel speaker, who is Ms. Marika Labru, founder and CEO at CEL Consultancy, which stands for Compassionate Entrepreneurial Leadership, and BOD member of DEFA, Entrasoft, and Focus Barry. So Ms. Labru has undertaken a broad range of different responsibility roles throughout her career in industries ranging from IT to consulting to retail. So with that in mind, I would like to pose the question. Ms. Labru, have you observed significant differences between different sectors' openness to diversity and inclusion? In other words, do you think more dynamic and newer industries, such as that of technology, which are by default more innovative, are also more willing than traditional sectors to create diverse workforces and provide equal opportunities to different social groups? Please, Ms. Labru, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I will reply shortly and sharply. No, there's no difference. In fact, you can see less of what we call diversity and inclusion in technology companies, where people are supposed to be more advanced in terms of thinking and adopting new initiatives, new worldwide initiatives. And you can also find more of what we call diversity and inclusion in small family businesses. It always depends on the principles, on the culture of the top management, most of the times. Now, technology companies can facilitate the fact that people are respected and are more involved. But it also has to do with the people themselves. If they go following their stereotypes from the first time, for the first minute they join the companies, then we really do not see much of a difference. But what I would like to mention, having worked for more than 20 years in high-tech companies, is that when you enter the workplace, you see on what we might call junior or medium levels of hierarchy, for example, a lot of women or a lot of disabled people. But as we go higher up in the ladder, then the percentages of these diversified people are getting less and less. And in fact, the ones that really manage to reach the top, they are treated in a way like, okay, you changed, you became one of us. Once I had, when I was the only woman member of a very big tech company in the stock exchange market, this company, I was welcomed with the comment that something has changed on you biologically. This was a joke, and you have not realized, so that's why you are a member of our team, of our board. Things are changing, but in my opinion, they are changing very slowly. We now have something like an obligation of 25% of women being board members. Boards having 25% of women at least, but this is not enough. I think we have to accelerate. We have to speed up. More things have to take place and more initiatives. Of course, organizations need to take more initiatives, but I always insist that more initiatives should be taken on a social and family level, because this is where we educate boys and girls to behave the way they behave when they become 35 or 40 or whatever. So we need to speed up and insist more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input, Ms. Labru. I believe bringing this comparative and all-round perspective at the beginning of our roundtable will assist us in the conversation to follow. So now I'd like to ask you to make that a little bit more specific and talk about gender in particular, which I know you have worked on extensively. So what do you think is the #1 obstacle faced by women during their development and career progression on the corporate ladder?
I think although it might be heard as conservative and traditional, I think it is women themselves, the way um, they have really believed in themselves or not believed in themselves, and the way they have treated their progress, and the way they have considered their role in the society. So if you grow up believing that you are supposed to be just a good housewife and a caring mother, and that professional progress is only for few women or for special women, then for sure you will put some limits and some obstacles to your own self. So instead of describing a situation, I would like to propose that we all give some more interest, and that we all mention more and do something more about very young kids, about children, boys and girls, to educate them and to help them understand that there are hundreds of opportunities, that opportunities are for all the people, that dreams are for all the people, and that women have the same capabilities to pursue a career. I've seen hundreds of women believing in themselves and been very, very successful, both in their personal, social, and professional lives. I've seen some other very capable women of limiting themselves just because a stereotype is stuck in their minds, and they believe that they cannot do both, or that their role in life, their purpose in life, is to serve others in the limited, I would say, area of a family, bigger or smaller family. So I think we should do something more with the education of younger generations, to make them understand that women have the right to follow their dreams, and also from a business perspective, maybe we have to explain with more numbers that women not being involved and not being promoted in the various business environments is harming the whole world. 50% of the world population is women, and only 1/3 of the working population is women, especially as we go up the career ladder. And this is harming the economy, the world, the society, the future of our children, and the future of the generations that are coming ahead. I hope that I explained it a little bit more now.
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Ms. Labrador. It is very insightful what you said about how everything starts from a young age and the importance of communication for reproducing all of these ideas and stereotypes. So before we continue with the rest of our panel, I can see that Ms. Irena Muzova is back online with us. So I would like to give the floor to her and introduce her as Director for Equality and Union Citizenship at the European Commission. So please, Ms. Muzova, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm really sorry. So those are the mysteries of digital technologies, that you are at one moment perfectly connected with the whole world, and suddenly in a second, so everything is going bad. But I'm really very happy to be back with you, with the diversity supporters. And since I'm supposed to give a little bit more overall overview of where we stand at Europe, so let me start with a quote from our President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, because she said, and let me quote her, "Innovation needs brains, but it also needs diversity. It needs space to think. We have all that here in Europe." And let me then base on that my following short presentation. Because indeed, Europe is built up on the diversity. We are all united in diversity. And the Europe is built on the powers stemming from its diversity. And let's face it, European Union has never ever been as diverse earlier as it is today. And diversity is our strength. And if we want to build a sustainable future, we need to use it for good, of course. And now, so what does sustainability have to do with inclusion? The question is more and more raised by companies who have started to understand the importance of people in their efforts towards sustainability. A realization that sustainable practices are not just ethical, but also give a huge competitive advantage in the business terms. Now, sustainable development happens only when we have a perfect balance between all three pillars of sustainability. That means economic, environmental, and social. Now, how can diversity and inclusive initiatives drive sustainable results within the companies? Let me now answer this question in this way. Leaders who have mastered managing diverse teams and creating inclusive workplaces have the highest chances to improve the company from environmental, social, and economic aspects. Because diversity helps to build better strategies. Diverse teams are much more innovative and better prepared to take bold and courageous decisions that are often needed to solve the challenges and to actually be up to date. And you know that our societies are changing, are facing new and numerous challenges. So it is very crucial that when a company invests into sustainability, it doesn't forget also the social impact of their policies. The need to have a proper non-discrimination strategy and policy in the workplace, to also respect work-life balance, to make all employees feel included and in the organization, and also to create a kind of community, I would say, feeling of belonging. So in one sentence, it needs to care for its employees, but also it have to care about the communities they operate. So when we know that more diverse teams perform better and diverse management boards make bolder decisions, so then maybe the question is, so why we don't see this diversity in every organization in Europe? Well, we see that process regarding female representation in corporate boards and leadership positions, but this progress unfortunately remains very slow and uneven across the European Union. And we have heard it from the first panelist, despite their capabilities and educational achievements, women unfortunately have to struggle against long-held and systemic anti-barriers, stereotypes. And they have difficulties to find their position in the corporate boards and leadership positions, so-called glass ceiling. And let me now use some numbers, because in average, only around 29% of the board members of the largest European Union publicly listed companies, let's say it in blunt numbers, so 1/3 only are women. And women only account for some 8% among the CEOs. And sometimes to get everyone convinced and moving towards the same direction, so there is a need for the external push. And this is why we as the European Commission, we have been committed to making the Agenda 2030 a reality for everyone by proposing new legislation and strategies to support achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and equality in Europe. Now, Commission has focused on delivering concrete actions that will bring tangible progress in the area of Sustainable Development Goals. And this is reflected in the political guidance of the President of von der Leyen Commission, and also supported by concrete, specific proposals, policies, but also strategies that we as a Commission, we are presenting. So let me be a little bit more specific on it. So we have presented many transformative policies in the last years. And let me now number only some from the area of equality and diversity. So let me start maybe with the big communications on the European Green Deal, proposal for a corporate sustainability reporting directive. And now, so those from the area where I'm responsible for, that means Union of Equality, so gender equality strategy, European anti-racism action plan, LGBTIQ equality strategy, also the disability strategy, And let me finish maybe by the strategic framework for equality, inclusion, and participation. Well, we have also proposed to address the lack of the diversity in the management with a proposal for a directive on gender balance in corporate boards. I will just remind you again, so 1/3 of the boards are only filled by women at the current situation in Europe. So we have addressed it, however, not with binding gender quotas. We address it in the view to put into place the transparent procedure for the selection of the board's position in the largest European listed companies until this underrepresented sex holds at least 40% of the board seats. So in general, so it can be a man, but in most of the cases, so these are unfortunately women. We believe that with this greatest transparency on all the procedures would make it possible that the real qualification and the real merit of the candidate will be the key criterion and the only criterion for the board membership. However, after 9 years since we have presented this proposal, this draft directive is still pending approval by the member states in the Council. And we certainly believe that the adoption of this directive will be a major step in the road of, towards the effective gender equality in Europe. And we also believe that such a new directive will send a clear message that the European economy will make best use when it's using all its talents in their diversity. Now, you certainly will agree with me that the last year and a half so brought serious challenges, and we have put our societies under great pressure. This has impacted us all, but some of them harder than the others. We can see that the COVID-19 pandemic has been extremely difficult for minority groups like people with ethnic minority backgrounds that experience stigmatizations, people with disabilities who suffer from exclusion, or single parents who had to cope with their own work and other multiple tasks during the confinement, LGBTIQ people who fear discrimination by their employers, or women who had nowhere to escape from their abusers. So we have already adopted the strategies to act on several of these issues, as I already debriefed you, and we are also combating gender-based violence as a priority for the Commission. Maybe very few remarks about the Istanbul Convention. I know that in Croatia, so there was a huge discussion at the political level to achieve the final ratification, but we are unfortunately not yet there. So this golden standard on the fight against the gender-based violence, unfortunately, still does not exist at the European level. The process, despite of the fact that European Union signed in June 2017, so has not progressed, and the process remains not very certain at the moment. And let me only say that we as a European Commission will act under this situation, and we will present a new legislative proposal to prevent and combat gender-based violence still before the end of this year in order to achieve the same objective as the Istanbul Convention. Now, let me finish by saying that in order to truly achieve union of equality and diversity, so we cannot work alone. We, as the European Commission, have to work with other European institutions, member states, cities, municipalities, businesses, universities, public institutions, etc. We have also very strong support by funding. As you know, so we came to help towards the member states with the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is also focused on improving gender equality in the member states. This facility will provide 670 billion euros available to all member states, also with a clear impact on the social and economics problems, but also being women a clear objective of the facility. And last but not least, let me also commend the member states because they are using and they wish to use this facility in order to invest in the provision of early childhood education, long-term care, as well as in the flexible working arrangements. And I believe that some of these elements were already mentioned by the first panelist, and I'm sure that this way to support increased female labor market participation will be mentioned by other participants. And last but not least, the many national recovery and resilience plans include investment also in the digital expertise of girls and young women, because we believe that this is also extremely important to give the new step ahead for women and girls to participate as a equal partner in the labor market. So there are also grants for the female-owned companies and companies managed by women. Let me finish by saying that we are very proud to work together with the businesses. We count on 13,000 companies employing over 60 million of employees, that they've already signed the charter in 26 European member states. We are happy to see that these companies are sharing good practices from around Europe, and they are tackling the challenges of tomorrow together today. And this is all from my side, and I wish you a very happy discussion. I hope that this European framework is somehow bringing its fruits at the level of the member states, but mainly also at the level of business communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Mazova. That is a very enlightening and inspiring presentation. So thank you for that. It's good to see that the European Commission has very specific targets and principles and goals it is aiming for. And actually, I think your contribution here helps us continue our panel discussion. It's an even better transition to our next speaker. So we want to thank you very much for being here. We completely understand the technological issues, so no worries about that. And yes, thank you again. Now I would like to welcome the next speaker on our panel discussion, which is Mr. Ramon Leaf, who is Talent Acquisition Head of Johnson & Johnson for France, the Netherlands and Belgium, who I would like to ask to help us a bit with how we can overcome the barriers that Ms. Marika Labru talked about earlier, not just in terms of gender, but in all its different dimensions. So Mr. Lith, from your own company's experience, I want to ask what measures can be taken by companies to ensure an inclusive recruitment process? And following that, what are the benefits of using such methods?
Perfect. Well, thank you for the introduction. And indeed, I think that Mrs. Mazova already, touched upon a couple of topics that we really see that needs to be changed. So if we look at Johnson & Johnson or Janssen, we have a tradition of 20 years of working around DEI. It's based on our credo and on our global DEI strategy, where we really, strive to be an inclusive company where everybody can be themselves, what we will call you belong. Now, one of the first things that I want to point out is that when we ensure diverse slates or even diverse when we ensure diverse slates of candidates, it's really good to also look at the diverse interview panels, because that always we look at that. We sometimes forget that in order to really work around diverse slates, you also need to have diverse interview panels, and that's something that we do actually within J&J for every vacancy. So both from a gender and from an ethnicity perspective, even if this would delay the time of recruitment, because we feel that is way too important to look at right now. So to that end, in Belgium, we also started providing an inclusive vacancy writing workshop for our hiring managers. It's something that we started in 2020, that is across all our businesses. And actually, thanks to their success, we are still that are still going this week as we speak. Workshops are organized in small groups to stimulate interaction and dialogue. It's been co-developed with an organization called Alliance, which is an agency specialized in communication and diversity, where we really started to look into, okay, so if we have a job vacancy, what can we do in order to have it more inclusive? Sometimes we are literally stuck in our business jargon, and I think that it's a mistake that we need to avoid. For instance, if you would be thinking about simple things like female-coded words that we use, and male-coded words. So female-coded words could be sensitive or affectionate, support or compassion, or male-coded words being confident, ambition, assertive or outspoken. It's really about being much more mindful about how we address certain things, and especially in a job vacancy, because there's where it all starts. If you want to attract the right people, the right talent, you need to really be able to let go of any business jargon, as I was talking about, and really have an open mind. I think that's truly the only way forward to attract a very diverse pool of talent. So we have currently actually more than 450 hiring managers that have followed the workshop. It really got great feedback because it made people think, how can we not only looking at gender, but also look beyond gender to attract the talent that's really needed. We are in the midst of a war on talent, and we really should be reaching all the talent out there who wants to be part of an organization. Next to that, we actually have created strategic partnership with NGOs to bring young ethnic talent together with industry and corporates. And that way we've initiated 2 partnerships for this year, one with A Seat at the Table, another one with Jobs at Ubuntu, and have set up some talent events with them that are very useful, also from a cultural perspective. We try to give a balanced way to life experiences, meaning that think about people that like paying for their own studies, really showing resilience versus having additional degrees. We really try to have a very open mind on how we can attract talent that is well needed out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Lith. So I see the importance of language and linguistic choices is coming up again already in this panel. So yeah, your inclusive vacancy writing workshops seem to be a very effective way of tackling the problem of unconscious bias. As you say, it is where it all starts, the recruitment process. So it's important to see actions being taken there. Now you also touched upon ethnicity, and I think that is a great way of connecting to our next speaker, who I believe your companies have been cooperating or both involved in the Business Uniting Talents project organized by CSR Europe alongside 9 leading companies in Belgium, which aims at building an inclusive business model with regards to ethnicity. So I would like to welcome on that note, Mr. Luc van der Mortelle, who has been D&I officer for AXA for around 8 years now, but is also the president of the Diversity Council of the Brussels Public Transport System and president of the Guidance Committee of the King Baudouin Foundation on the topic of migration, integration, and inclusion. So again, I'm aware that you have wide-ranging experience on the topic in different dimensions of diversity, but given your involvement in Business Uniting Talents, I would like it if we could focus on that today. And I would like to ask you, what measures can you share with us that have already been tested by your company to assess its level of ethnic diversity and inclusion?
Okay, thank you, Ariadne, for the introduction, and hello to everyone. Indeed, as you already said, AXA Belgium is part of Business Uniting Talents 2030 Task Force, which is a project developed by CSR Europe in collaboration, as you said, with the King Baudouin Foundation and Prince Philip Funds. And we aim at fostering ethnic diversity and inclusion in the labor market, mainly because because Belgium has really not the same percentage of employment for people with non-European origin compared to the European average. And so that was the main reason why this project has been started. Together with 8 large and small companies across Belgium, and also with tens of practitioners and experts of multiple sectors, we established a new approach based on informed assessment and collaborative action. And so the methodology allowed us to raise awareness on the topic and facilitated also the establishment of inclusive business processes. And so one of the things we did with this project is to make a best practice booklet that will appear in the beginning of November. The publication will be done. And so there will be 17 examples of actions that companies, Belgian companies, did and that other companies can implement in order to promote ethnic diversity in their own business environment. And so One of the things that was difficult for us in Belgium is that, as in the most European countries, you cannot legally measure ethnic diversity. It's not legal to ask the origin of the people. And so on one hand, we launched an international survey, an inclusion survey, where we ask several questions in an anonymous way on gender, sexual orientation and identity, age, disability, but also origin. And so we also have had a question on the ENPS, so the Employee Net Promoter Score, in order to know what in what way are our employees convinced that AXA is an inclusive company. And so that's very interesting to see, even if it's anonymous, and even if not everyone is participating. But for Belgium, we had more than 70% of people participating in this survey. It gives already an idea. And on the other hand, we were very proud that we found a way of measuring, again, in an anonymous way, but in a legal way, here specifically in Belgium, in collaboration with the crossroad of the social security system, a way of knowing how many people we have working at AXA Belgium and what their origin are. And so that gave us a first concrete view on where do we stand, and now we can concretely go on and see where do we need to improve, and what can we do to improve this. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Van der Wortel. Well, it does sound like you're already doing a lot, and it's great to see proper measurable data and results coming out of it. The next question is, looking forward, if you have further ambition, how do you think we would be able to take it one step forward? I mean, we are all definitely looking forward to your best practice booklet, which will come out in November. I imagine that will give us a lot of ideas for the future.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed, in the best practice booklet, the 8 companies working together here in Belgium on this topic, they all put their own best practices, also from Johnson & Johnson. And yeah, it's very interesting because it's about concrete things that we are already doing that sometimes are difficult, but sometimes are rather easy to implement, and that can make a big change.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mr. Van der Wortel.
Thank you.
So now moving on to our next speaker on the panel, I would like to welcome Ms. Leslie O Lachlan, Group HR Manager at Enterprise Holdings Ireland, which is a car rental agency operating worldwide. Ms. O'Loughlin has also been involved in a lot of work with different areas of diversification, for example, working with refugees and migrants and with people with disabilities. So I'm sure Ms. O'Loughlin will be able to tell us a bit more about that. And specifically, it would be great if you could tell us from your experience, what does it mean to be an inclusive employer? And on top of that, what top tips could you share with other companies based on this experience?
Okay, yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm just delighted I was able to unmute myself effectively and not be told that I'm on mute. I'm delighted to be here. And to be honest with you, I suppose on both a personal and professional level, I do feel like this is something we could probably talk about for hours because it's so important. And I think some of the things that people are saying here are very reflective of what we do within Enterprise. And I'll probably expound on that a little bit. Just to give you some context, so Enterprise, we are a global transportation solution provider. So we do operate in over 100 countries. And we are really the largest transportation solution provider, but we're also a privately held company. And I think, to me, if you ask me what it means to be an inclusive employer, I think actually Ms. Lebrou said something in the beginning that I thought was very important. And she mentioned how the culture at the top of the organization is really key. And I would echo that, because I do think that the leaders in your organization really set the tone. And I feel very fortunate to be working in an organization that is family owned. It's privately held, and it is very values driven. And as a values driven company, our leadership team expects us to live the values every day, and really to embrace the differences, I suppose, that make us unique. And we all talk about how diversity drives innovation, and I genuinely believe that's true. So just in terms of the values-driven culture piece. Some of the things that I think we do internally within enterprise that really help to sustain that culture is everything from how we recruit. So we're a very large graduate recruiter. We do focus on ensuring that everything we do, whether we're posting a job or whether we have frontline managers facilitating interviews for candidates, that there's a lot of training and guidance around what they're doing when they're bringing in those candidates. Our job postings are designed and critiqued externally by some of our strategic partners in diversity to ensure that they are inclusive. So I think somebody mentioned the wording that you use when you are advertising for a role. And that can be how you advertise a role to attract female talent, or it can also be how you advertise a role to attract people with disabilities, because certain language can be designed unconsciously actually to filter people out of that interview process. And then I think also in terms of being an inclusive employer, it's very important that we ensure that our employees are trained up internally at both senior levels of management down to the organization to help support that concept of embracing the differences that make us unique. Because it's not really just about bringing people into the organization. Once you have them in the organization, it's about ensuring that they feel like they can bring their whole selves to work every day and that they can be their best selves within the organization. And I think ensuring that everybody buys in and embraces that is critical to that culture piece. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, it was great what you said about living the values and embracing the differences. I guess it's the idea of practicing what you preach. So that's great. I know that you've personally also been involved in coaching and getting involved on a personal level. Is that correct? With communities, with people with disabilities?
Yes, that is true. And to be honest, that's very much endorsed by enterprise. So I suppose one of the things every organization is at a certain place in this journey with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to be fair, it is a journey. There's no end to the journey because we're constantly learning and we're constantly growing and evolving. And I think one of the key things that we've done quite well at enterprise is learn how to tap into the supports that are available to us within our community. A great example of some of the supports that we have in Ireland would be organizations like Business in the Community Ireland, who are very important strategic partners for us. We've worked very closely with them on their EPIC program, which stands for Employment for People from Immigrant Communities, people who have come into Ireland, who are highly skilled, very intelligent, and incredibly motivated to work, but for whatever reason are facing high barriers to employment within Ireland. So, helping to support those folks, some of whom we've hired actually within enterprise, so that they can access employment and utilize their skills and become a productive member of society, which is really what they want. And then also organizations that we work with, like the Association of Higher Education and Disability. Again, a cohort of people who have so much to bring to the table, so much untapped talent, and being able to access those folks so that we can bring them into the organization is really critical for us. So I think it's about finding and utilizing those resources and tapping into that talent.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. O Lachlan. Yeah, I guess we can see through this that it's important not only to shed light on the benefits of diversity and inclusion for companies, but also we can provide to motivate really young people or people that have been excluded for so long, that there are ways to re-enter the system or enter for the first time, and they will get the support they need in doing so. So thank you very much for that. Next, I would like to welcome to this roundtable Ms. Lada Tedeschi-Fiorio, who is the Vice President of Atlantic Grupa, which is a Croatian multinational company that represents one of the largest regional food industries in Southeast Europe. The company has its headquarters in Croatia and market presence in over 40 countries around the world. Atlantic Grupa's female employee force makes up around 50% not only of the team, but also of management. So with that in mind, we would like to delve deeper into the dimension of gender diversity in particular for the company. So Mr. Tedeschi-Fiorio, what measures does your company implement in order to ensure equal opportunities for career progression with regards to gender? And in addition, what benefits do you expect to see from that from your D&I policy.
Hello to everybody. Okay, just to start, in Atlantic Grupa, we are great supporters of diversity of any sort, not even gender. But now regarding the gender equality, we are practicing two measures. They're kind of different, but also connected, and we think that both really help. The first one is the mentorship. So we encourage our senior experienced female colleagues to be mentors and to take mentorship of other female younger colleagues inside the company, but also outside the company, and to encourage them to grow professionally and also personally. And we think it's really important for young female colleagues to have some kind of example and also support and the concrete mentorship from the older female colleagues. And me personally, I've taken few younger colleagues, and I mentor them, and it really gives me a great sense of purpose and accomplishment in sharing my professional experience, but also my personal experience. And I always try to share with them really openly and honestly what I've felt in a business community, when I felt diverse and when I felt not really accepted, and how I coped with that, and it helps. And I see that it's not only about the professional knowledge and experience, but also personally how we feel and how we cope, that we have to share with younger colleagues. On the other side, we've noticed that the women, or especially women in management, that they are less frequent to the business networking. And on the other side, business networking is something that really helps in building the connections, but also in showing professional visibility. So we encourage our female colleagues to participate. We enable them, and we kind of organize more business networking. And we see that at the end, it really helps, and that the experiences are really great, because they feel more secure, well, more accepted, more visible in a total business community. So those are two things, two different programs, but put together, we see that they really show the results, and that help in getting our young female colleagues stronger and with more self-confidence, and then at the end also more prone to let's say compete in a what we could call the male business world. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, Mr. De Fioria. Actually, that was a great transition from Ms. O Lachlan before, who also was talking about setting examples and engaging with the people yourselves. So thank you very much from that. I also wanted to ask, relating to the fact that you are a company in the industry of food and beverage, a consumer good company, how that hasn't had an impact, if that has affected the fact that you've chosen to diversify your company based on your customer base.
Yeah, taking in consideration that we are in FMCG, and that we sell and we work with food and beverage, and that most of our consumers or shoppers, not consumers only, but shoppers, those who are taking decision what to buy, are women, we have to think also from their point of view, and we have to adapt the language that we talk to our consumers, but also to our employees, to some kind of to the language that is understandable for them, with the right message, but also with the right tone. And so we try to really adapt the atmosphere in the company, how we talk and how we create the atmosphere between ourselves, but also what the signals and the messages that we send to our consumers. It has to be, let's say, adapted to the tone that the women understand.
Thank you very much. Yes, that seemed to demonstrate that it is simply common sense from a consumer good industry perspective to have a diverse pool of talent in the workforce. in order to be able to respond to the wants and needs of a diverse society as a whole and not just a small segment of it. So based on that, I would like to thank you very much and welcome our next speaker for the day, who also comes from the food and beverage industry, Ms. Ruca Tomic-Fontana, who is the General Manager at Coca-Cola HBC for Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Slovenia. So Ms. Tomic-Fontana represents the world's most sustainable beverage company in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which currently operates in 29 countries across Europe, Eurasia, and Africa. So Coca-Cola HBC has established specific targets for diversity in several of its different dimensions. An example of this being that they have recently embedded D&I as a growth pillar at the core of the group's strategy. So given that our panelists have already covered the dimensions of gender, ethnicity, refugees, and people with disabilities, it would be great if we could see it from another perspective too, that of youth empowerment and needs, which stands for people neither in employment nor in education and training. So Ms. Tomic-Fontana, please tell us, what measures does your company implement in order to ensure equal opportunities? And what are your key focuses in the community, speaking dominantly about youth?
Thank you very much, Adriana. I hope you can hear me. Very happy and glad to be with all of you today here on this very important topic. And especially very happy and grateful to be here also strengthened with Lada, another great leader from the local community to strengthen our D&I agenda overall in this part of the world. To your question, what are the measures that we implement as a company in order to ensure the equal opportunities, and then specifically, what is it that we are doing for the youth, for the need population, meaning not in education, employment, or trainings. So let me just spend a few sentences on the measures we implement to ensure equal opportunities. Obviously, as you said, being the world's most sustainable beverage company in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, we are currently operating in 29 countries. That's a beautiful and diverse environment because we are covering Europe, Eurasia, and Africa. We are even having 2 business units that are operating in that continent. As you said, we have made D&I an equal contributor to our growth strategy and one of the key growth pillars, because we truly do believe that the diverse and inclusive workforce is a key to our market success. As a group, we also have established our 2025 sustainability commitments. One of those elements and the measures that we implement is obviously gender balance as the first thing we have to improve when it comes to D&I agenda. So we have set to ourselves a target to reach 50% of female leaders in the management position across our group. We are progressing with a different pace in a different part of the world. For example, in Croatia, I would dare to say that we are leading the way with even 48% of women leaders in all the managerial positions in our organization, and we are currently employing here 500 people. In the Adria business unit that I have a privilege to lead with my team, we are at 42%. So even at the group level, in order to measure our progress, we have recently established Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Steering Committee at the group level, with the 3 main focuses: gender equality, cultural inclusion, and the elimination of age as a factor in assessing one's performance. When it comes to youth, we are very much focused on empowering the youth across the group. Now, in this part of the world, it's not always easy because we are also faced with a lot of youth leaving this part of the world due to the very high unemployment. However, we are not stopping from investing into this project, which we started in 2017 with the goal of providing business and the life skill to the population who is not in education, not employed, or not in training, in order to increase their overall competitiveness in the market. So we are focusing on people which are, let's say, in this very vulnerable group, and making the project available in all of our 3 countries, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Slovenia. with the fully utilized digitalized platforms, especially in these pandemic times. So up until this year, we have educated more than 5,000 people with these additional life and business skills that we are also developing with the help of our partners from the business schools and from also the life coaches and the communication coaches in order really to help them being better equipped to start a new and a brighter future for them. Another thing that we're also doing for youth is our strategic platform called Raise the Bar, which is focused on increasing the capability of the workforce for hospitality and the tourism sector, having in mind that that sector is very important in this part of the world, contributing approximately to 20% of the country's GDP when it comes to Croatia. So we have developed the program in the collaboration with the European Bartender Association, with the high schools in Croatia, and as well with some international institutions where we are supporting through our own foundation the scholarship for the top chefs. At the same time, we are educating the top barmen in our Raise the Bar Academy, and we are also developing the collaboration with the 6th Center of Competencies in the collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism and Education in Croatian high schools. So those would be, in short, let's say, our effort when it comes to youth, and those would be the sustainable investments and the steps that we are making in order to help and strengthen the youth, but at the same time also to make a positive impact and a contribution in the communities we are operating in. Thank you for the question, Ariadne.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Tomasz-Fontana. It is evident that D&I has become a key priority for your company, and it is clearly paying off too. So an important takeaway, I think, from what you said is that implementing D&I is not just about internal practices, but it's about giving to the community and offering opportunities to those on the margins directly. And of course, everything you said about youth, especially when we were talking about accelerating business innovation, it would come as no surprise. Listening to the fresh perspective of young people would contribute to that. So we also see that obviously a lot of the projects have had real results, which is something I would like to delve deeper into, but we will do so in our second round of questions. And now I would like to proceed to our last but not least speaker of the day, who is Mr. Alex Pigo, CEO at Tico Mailworks, which is an SME operating in Ireland in the logistics and mailing industry. So since it is indeed important hearing about the experience of large multinational companies, since they're clearly leading the way in terms of DE&I in Europe, but I think it adds a lot of value to see what's happening on a smaller scale. So Mr. Pigo, please tell us, as CEO of a small company, what has been your experience in promoting a more diverse workforce, and what challenges did you have to overcome in pursuing your D&I policy?
Thank you very much, and having me on to speak. I'm honored to be here. So our story in terms of our experience in promoting a more diverse workforce goes back 35 years ago, I suppose. And Mum and Dad came in here and said that they had a son who was profoundly deaf, and would we have a career for them, for that person. And so we managed to do that at that time. And ever since, we've tried to employ anybody who has been marginalized and having difficulty finding a job and has come to us looking for a career. We've taken on staff not only from many different cultural backgrounds, but also those who could only work in a supported environment. In addition, we've taken on staff where other employers were not interested because the prospective employee was a former offender. And at the same time, we've insisted on a gender balance throughout all departments and grades within our organization. And the basis of our D&I strategy is to try and have our company workforce reflect the diversity in the community where we live. Without doubt, our experience has shown us that a more diverse and inclusive workforce, it ensures a better understanding in the workforce of the challenges that their colleagues, customers, suppliers, and the wider community faces. And it helps bring the wider world into the workforce. It reduces the them and us mentality between us in here and the people who live in the community outside, which if left unchecked, can maybe become a bit of a destructive force. We'd encourage, because of the experience, we'd encourage all other companies, and can I say at this point, we're so grateful to business in the community who we bumped into about 8 years ago for the help into getting to where we are today. But we'd encourage all those companies to consider this idea of having a diverse workforce which reflects the community where an organization is based. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Mr. Piggott. Yeah, I think this theme is coming up a lot already today, about this reflection of community. It's just common sense, it seems, even if, you know, the makeup is different in Ireland versus Croatia or wherever we may be talking about in the world. Sorry, I have just muted myself there somehow. So
You have another question for me? I thought you had died and my screen had frozen. Thank God it hasn't.
No, so okay, so you didn't hear any of what I said. So I just wanted to say that the topic of reflection in community and wanting to have a diverse workforce that reflects what we see out of the office and out of the factory or whatever it may be that we're working is important, whether we're talking about Ireland, Croatia. It seems to be coming up a lot today. So thank you very much for that. And specifically, I would like to ask you if you could give us a bit more input about your experience having worked with people with criminal backgrounds and the long-term unemployed. That does seem like quite a challenging area. So please.
Yeah, definitely. Taking on staff from different cultural backgrounds or ensuring a gender balance, and this area is like, I think is relatively easy for any company to take on. But those from marginalized backgrounds, such as former offenders or from the Roma community, or as we call that community here in Ireland, travellers, is in my view a much more difficult task. But people from these marginalized communities find it almost impossible to get a job. And we should try to be a little realistic with this situation. And what I mean by that is, why are they looking for a job, even though they get rejected again and again and again and again? You know, wouldn't not just be much easier to stay on social welfare or go back to reoffending? And the answer is no. The reason is they're looking for a job because they want a job. So on that basis and for that reasoning, again, anyone who comes to us from a marginalized background and is looking for a job, no matter for what reason they find themselves marginalized, we will try to help. What we've learned in the process is the most difficult hurdle to overcome is ensuring the other staff that we already have, you know, are satisfied working next to somebody who is marginalized. And that is, we think that's the biggest problem. And that's in our experience. But funnily enough, in our experience also, those staff who find it difficult to work beside somebody who is marginalized are the staff that were the more difficult staff to manage anyway. You know, the better staff, the ones that we want to hold on to for the long term, we found that they worked hard to include the new staff member. I suppose that's our takeaway for today, in terms of answer to your question. The most enjoyable result for all of us was to see and experience the natural affinity some staff have for those who are marginalized and the satisfaction they get from helping out those who are marginalized and helping them succeed. So I think you were asking, did you think we were suitable for this? And the answer, I think, is I don't think any company is unsuitable to take on those who are marginalized. I'd say we are as suited as any. And I hope that answers your question again. Thanks, Ariadne.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Mr. Piggott. It definitely answers my question and gives a nice lesson for everyone listening from a big or small company. It doesn't really make a difference. And what you said about seeing that people, you know, why would people be looking for jobs if they could just stay on benefits? They obviously have a lot to offer and want to offer, and probably the staff you already have are appreciating this because they see it in their everyday work life. So that's very promising. So now I would like to open the floor to some questions from the audience to make sure that we have time to answer them. We do have a second bonus round as well, but I would like to begin with that just to make sure the interactive aspect of this panel is sustained. So the first question we have received that is targeted to Ramon Lith is that you referred to male-colored and female-colored words. How would one identify a word as male or female-colored?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we use, a certain technology called Textio for those who know it, which basically is how to put it, like an artificial intelligence based system that supports in, for instance, job vacancies. Now, if we talk about female colored words, and I mentioned them earlier, I might have said them a bit too fast. So for instance, sensitive or affectionate or support or even compassion are words that somehow attract more female audience. Whereas male colored words are more words like confident, ambitious, assertive, or even outspoken. So those are, if the question is the difference between either female or male colored words, those are just a couple of examples that I want to share.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question from the audience. Yeah, I guess the separation that's important to make is the sex versus gender differentiation, that they're masculine and feminine words without that meaning that they're necessarily tied to men or women. So yes, Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. So now a question that we have received to all panelists is that COVID-19 has introduced a new digital era of work. And would you consider digitalization as an opportunity to enhance your company's DE&I strategy and efforts? And if so, how would that be achieved? Is anyone on the panel that would like to take the initiative and answer this question? Someone that has seen it directly? Ms. Rutsa Fontana, you did mention your digitalized platform. So yeah, maybe that ties into that quite well, if you would like to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Ariana. Thank you. I was thinking to open the floor also then to other colleagues. Yes, you're right. I mean, in a pandemic time, we have basically transferred our complete youth empowered program to a digital hubs in a different countries across the whole group, meaning 28 markets. However, thinking about how digitalization can help us in accelerating our efforts and impacts in the diversity, equity, and the inclusion arena, to be fully transparent and open, I don't think we have fully cracked it, not only when it comes to the beverage and food industry, but I think in general. I think what is needed most probably is from the business leader, more focused approach to how digitalization can be embedded into the efforts, from the strategic goals to the plans and the initiatives. This morning, I had a discussion with a digital platform leader from my leadership team, because in our case, the digital leaders are the part of the country management team. More in the arena how we can even stronger embed the digitalization in the customer-facing initiatives and the programs. I believe we tend to see digitalization rather as the enabler or as a, let's say, tool provider for our efforts and the initiatives in the diversity, equity, and inclusion arena, whereas I think it can be much more. It can give us the access and it can give access to the workforce to a different type of the programs and initiatives, from the training and education to a different ways that was also mentioned today, how we can already target a more diverse pool when recruiting the new talents, not only while we are developing them or while we are making the community programs, but how we can really make an impact when it comes to making sure we convey the key messages, be it from the recruitment to selection to accelerating the development. I would tend to see that as just one of the elements and the dimensions that is like first top of mind. I'm sure, and this is where I would then stop to also let the colleagues to build on. And that's the beauty of having such a diverse panel as well from a different industries, where I'm sure we can build on each other and think of how we can better use the digitalization for the D&I agenda. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much for that detailed answer, Ms. Ruza Fontana. I would like to see if anyone else on the panel would like to give their own experience on the same question. Otherwise, we can move on to other question from the audience. No? Okay, yes. So then I have one question for Ms. Lachlan, which is, what are the key challenges of working with people with disabilities? And is it about physical adaptations to the space as much as it is about a culture and mindset shift?
That is a great question. And the reason I love that question is because in my experience, previous to really us focusing on that space, that disability space, I would have experienced a lot of my colleagues and coworkers expressing barriers to hiring people with disabilities. So obviously we're a car rental company, we're a transportation solution provider. So envisioning somebody, for example, with a wheelchair coming in to work in one of our locations was a very difficult thing for my colleagues, my coworkers, my peers, and in some respect, even management to see or to visualize as possible. And then we hired an employee who was blind, completely blind. She wasn't visually impaired. She wanted to be very clear that she was blind. And we brought her into one of our city center customer facing locations, one of our busy locations. She happened to speak 3 languages, which was fantastic. And she was incredibly successful in that operation. And we did make some workplace adaptations. And when I mentioned earlier about tapping into resources, what's really incredible to me is that there are so many grants and things available to employers that aren't really well advertised, or you're not really aware of them. You have to really find them. But when you find them, in the case of this employee, for example, we were able to access about 10,000 euro in technology grants to be able to make our systems readable by her screen reader, her braille reader. So she was able to fully perform her job role. And at that point, then I found that having somebody in your business where people can see that person being successful and thriving, then just creates, it drives that culture. So then we were able to successfully hire a wheelchair user and access grants to adapt the location that she was working so that she could perform her role. But then not only just her performing her role successfully, but it just made that business better for people who were accessing the location that had a buggy, or for somebody who, it's that kind of universal design concept in our business. So yeah, the resources are there. Sometimes you have to dig to find them, but once you find them and you access them, I just think it really opens doors and drives that culture of inclusion and makes it easier for your colleagues and your coworkers to see that this shouldn't be the barrier. It's about ability and not disability.
Perfect. I believe that definitely answers the question from the audience. So we don't have much time left, but I would like to pose one final question to our panel to close off this event by looking directly at the impact the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies have. So Mrs. Labru, I would like to ask you, from everything we've heard today and from all your experience in different sectors, what do you think? Is there a link between a more diverse company and greater innovation? Is it just theory? What do you think?
It's not only theory, experience, at least my own experience of 33 years being in the work in the environment, in the market, is that whenever we have policies of diversity and inclusion applied, we see better results. Why? Because we see a better climate in the company, in the organization. People are more engaged, people are more productive, people are more willing to help each other. And that is the only way that great results can come. And we've seen, I see from the part of the state and also from the part of many organizations that more, let's say, diversity friendly policies are being applied. But still, I think we are far away from feeling that there is an equality established in various professional organizations. I told you in the beginning, and I would like to repeat, that even now, after many years, many decades of efforts, we are happy to have a rule saying that the companies that are in the Athens Stock Exchange market are supposed to have at least 25% of their board members being women. And are we happy with this? I am not, personally. I still see very few women involved, very few women supported. There is some progress, but I would like to finish by saying that we should not be happy with the progress. We need to speed up the process, and we need to speak more. We need to pursue more, and we need to dream more. Otherwise, even my grandchildren will not live in an equality era. Because for my daughters, I have realized they will not, for sure. Let's hope for the grandchildren.
Thank you very much for that. So for the other members of the panel, Ms. O Lachlan, do you agree with Ms. Lavru, and specifically applying it to your industry? Where can you see the difference and make on the bottom line?
I mean, 110%. And in fact, I've seen firsthand where when we have diversity and inclusion at work in our business, it has an impact on our bottom line, whether it's driving revenue, whether it is attracting talent, because as somebody said earlier, we're in the war for talent. I've seen, for example, when we have somebody working in a business who is Polish and speaks the language, we have more customers from the Polish community, so that we're meeting the needs of our Polish community by way of example. So again, somebody said it, it's about reflecting the communities in which we serve, and that's critical for us.
Thank you very much. I see in the Q&A section that there are a lot of questions coming in. So I believe you will agree that the interactive nature of this is important. So I would like to pose a couple more brief questions. So one is for Mr. Luc van der Mortelle, which asks if you have any open funding or call for proposal for nonprofits in Belgium, and if so, if you could share more information and the link.
So if I understood well, if there is funding for non-profit in Belgium. Yes, okay.
Yes.
From AXA Belgium, no, that's not what we are doing. From the side of the King Baudouin Foundation, I am there as a president of a specific project, and so I need to inform, or the person should inform directly with the King Baudouin Foundation. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to this question.
That's okay. Thank you for that. And a final question to Mr. Descifiorio. If the explained programs are applied to all the countries in which it operates, and to what level of management are they applied?
We really try to have it in all the countries and on all the levels. Of course, that it's easier in a headquarters where we are based, you know, to promote certain things, but we really try, being a regional company, to have them on all the levels, and to promote them in all the countries with the same programs and with the same experience sharing and with the same messages.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much. So I think this is a good time to wrap up our session. And I believe it has become clear to all of us from all your contributions that there's a positive relationship between diversity and business performance. And evidently DE&I is not only the fair forward, but also the most promising for the future. So concrete policy change in the way businesses face their employees and manage their talent pool is an accelerator for innovation and business growth. To recap all of this, what do we think are the benefits for an inclusive employer? Well, from what we heard, not only does the employer become an employer of choice, but also the company as such diversifies from standard practice and thinks out of the box, increasing the business capacity to innovate. Moreover, it improves customer service, removing unconscious biases and enabling a business to practically look in and out of the workplace with the lens of inclusion. Every community, and therefore every customer base, comprises of people with different strengths, challenges, needs, and expectations. Finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion can enhance brand reputation as communities, customers, and employees recognize what is authentic and relate with trust and loyalty. So today, the representatives on our panel have provided an array of different examples and best practices of how we can create solutions for the future and overcome the obstacles and challenges that have been getting in the way and used as excuses for so long. That is the case whether we're talking about gender, ethnicity, age, disability, background, or any other characteristic. And actually, these new policies and strategies of battling exclusion are a form of innovation in themselves. So we see that innovation fosters further innovation. A key focus of the European SDG Summit this year, which this roundtable is a part of, is ensuring a just transition, and that is only achievable if we place diversity, equity, and inclusion as core and negotiable priorities. So on that note, I would like to thank all the speakers on our roundtable today for their valuable, inspiring insight, as well as Ms. Musova for setting the frame at the beginning, and finally, all of you in the audience for listening and interacting with us. Now, I know Ms. Alexiou is here with us on the call, the chair of the board of CSR-LS. So I will give the floor to her for some closing remarks. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Ariadne. And allow me just to say also a big thank you to each and every of our speakers today, but also of the very active audience that, from what I heard, not unfortunately during the session, but in the closing part, there were a lot of interesting questions raising. From my side, as a representative of a partnership between three national partner organizations of CSR Europe, namely CSR-LS, BITC, Ireland, and CSR Croatia, I would like to thank you all. Thank you for your, let's say, very insightful discussion and commentation of the aspects we have tried to discuss today. It is a topic that is difficult, and of course, it is very much related to burdens like unconscious biases we all carry with us. I would like to wish you to enjoy the summit. I think this summit is really full of very interesting topics and people like us who share their experience, their problems and the possible solutions that they have tested, and they try to see how can be helpful in taking the next step. We have a next step to take also in respect to diversity. And I think that one only commitment we can take is that the experience we have gained from many years in action to transfer to the younger generation, to the people who actually will be the key beneficiaries of what we endeavor to achieve through SDGs. It is our children, it is our grandchildren, and it is the one and only responsibility we care to allow them to enjoy a better world than we did. So no matter how much we have achieved the last 30 years, at least that I work in this field, we have no time to lose. We have to do as much as possible and do it fast in order to safeguard that our children and grandchildren, as I said, will bury our wisdom, but will not suffer from the same problems, at least we have suffered in the past. So thank you again. I wish you all have a nice afternoon, nice evening, and I am really looking forward to see you all soon again. Thank you.